All right, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. How do we make AI understand us? Not just, mimic us.
It's a really interesting challenge, right?
Totally.
Because we're talking about AI that can write poetry, whip up some code,
Mm,
even analyze a movie, but do it in a way that genuinely feels insightful, maybe even human.
exactly. Like, how do we teach AI to understand what makes something good, something that clicks with us on a deeper level?
It goes beyond just data, right? It's not as simple as just downloading a library into its brain.
Right. Just because AI can string a sentence together doesn't mean it understands what makes it funny or insightful or even true.
And that's where RLHF comes in.
RLHF.
Reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Okay, so that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Mm.
Break it down for me. What is RLHF and where do we even start with something like that?
So imagine you're teaching someone music. Before you can have them composing a symphony, they need those music fundamentals down, right?
Right, the basics.
It's similar with AI. We start by training these language models on tons and tons of text. This gives them the building blocks, the grammar, the vocabulary, so to speak.
So like AI Linguistics 101.
Exactly. And oftentimes, this initial training involves fine-tuning it on specific data sets aligned with what we want to see. For instance, Anthropic, an AI company, they use a specific set designed to generate helpful, honest, and harmless content.
So going for a very wholesome AI, I see. But how do you actually teach a machine those values? It's not like you can just say, be nice or write a killer haiku.
And this is where things get really interesting, because this is where humans come in. We're talking about creating a reward model, which is basically another AI that learns to judge how good a text is based on what humans prefer.
Hold on, so we're training AI with more AI?
In a sense, yes. But the special sauce is human feedback.
Okay.
Imagine, right, you have a bunch of responses that the AI generated for one prompt. Humans then rank these, which ones are fantastic, which ones are meh, and which ones completely miss the mark. This ranking is gold.
So it's like an AI talent show, and we're the judges with the golden buzzer.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
got it. That ranking data is what trains the reward model, which then starts to understand the patterns, the qualities that we humans find appealing.
My mind is a little blown right now. But how do we actually use this reward model to make our initial AI better? It's one thing to have these expert critics, but how do we make sure the AI writer listens to them?
That is the magic of reinforcement learning. We take our initial language model, the one with all the language basics, and we essentially make a copy. And then we use that reward model as a guide to fine-tune it.
So it's like our AI writer now has a super smart editor who's learned from the best in the business.
Exactly. It's like the AI is getting constant feedback on its writing, learning what works and what doesn't based on those human judges.
So it's constantly trying to please this reward model, which is in turn reflecting those human preferences. Well, it's like AI inception or something. But I have a feeling it's not as easy as just letting the AI chase after the reward model's every whim, right?
You're absolutely right to question that. It's a delicate dance, actually. Because if the AI gets too fixated on just pleasing the reward model, it risks losing its own voice, its own creativity.
Okay, so how do we stop our AI from becoming a puppet of human preference and instead a nuanced thinker in its own right? That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really important that the AI keeps its own, I don't know, its own spark, right?
Exactly.
And there's a term for this balancing act. It's called callback-libeler divergence.
Callback. Okay, hold on. In plain English now, what does that even mean?
Okay, good point. Think of it like this. You have a musician, and they've totally mastered, like, classical music.
Right.
Okay, I'm with you. And now you want them to try jazz, but you don't want them to just completely ditch their classical background. That's kind of what callback-libeler divergence is like. We want to make sure the AI takes in that feedback from the reward model and doesn't just throw away everything from its initial training.
So it's like, hey, AI, learn to groove to this new beat, but don't forget your back. I like that.
Exactly.
Finding that balance between learning from us and keeping its own, like, internal consistency.
Yes, exactly. A continuous dance between mimicking and then innovating.
This is so cool. So how is this whole RLHF thing actually being used right now? Are we talking like teams of engineers handcrafting these models for every single AI out there? Or can, like, anyone with a laptop and a good idea get in on the action?
It's a great question, and I think this is one of the most exciting things about RLHF. It's becoming way more accessible because, yeah, it sounds super complex, but the reality is that open source tools like you've got TRL, TRLX, RL4LMs, These tools are making it easier for people to get involved.
Yeah, so how accessible are we talking? Could I go build the next ChatGPT?
Well, building something as sophisticated as, something like ChatGPT, it still takes a lot of expertise, a lot of resources, but these tools are really great because they give people a huge head start. They don't have to start from scratch.
Right, right. Kind of like having that digital toolbox to build your own masterpiece.
Exactly.
Are there any, like, pre-built models or data sets available, to help people get started?
Definitely. There are resources out there like the data set from Anthropic, the one that focuses on the helpful and harmless AI that gives people a solid starting point.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like there's a lot of potential here, but I'm sure there are also challenges, right?
For sure.
What are some of the things that you run into with this approach?
So one of the biggest ones, honestly, is just the reliance on human feedback. Because gathering that feedback, good quality feedback at a large scale, well, it gets expensive. It makes time.
Yeah, it's like trying to get a group of friends to agree on what to order for dinner, right?
It's a great analogy.
Everyone has their own tastes.
Everyone's got their own opinion. And then you've got to think about, the huge amount of data that you need to train these models well.
Right, of course. More data, fewer AI food fights.
Exactly. And the more data you have, the better you can account for all those little nuances, and hopefully you can mitigate some of the bias.
Makes sense. So are there any other limitations that we should be aware of?
Yeah, one thing to remember is that these systems, they're only as good as the data that we train them on.
Of course, garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. So if the data itself has biases, reflecting biases that already exist, the AI can pick those up and could even amplify them.
Right, right. It's really important to keep that in mind. So it sounds like there's a huge responsibility here.
Oh, absolutely. We have to be very careful about the data we use and be on the lookout for those biases. But the cool thing is, the field is always changing.
Yeah.
Researchers are always pushing the boundaries, finding new ways to make RLHF more robust, more effective.
I've heard about something called ILQL. Is that one of those new developments?
Yes, it is. Implicit language cue learning. It's a fascinating area of research. Remember how we were talking about that back and forth between the language model and the reward model during training?
Yeah.
Well, ILQL, it's trying to find ways to make that whole process more efficient.
Okay, so ILQL, that sounds like a potential game changer. But break it down, what makes it so special?
So right now, with a lot of RLHF systems, we have to evaluate every single piece of text that the AI generates using that reward model.
Okay.
It's like a constant check-in. And that can create a bottleneck. What's interesting about ILQL is that it tries to get around that.
Okay.
It tries to learn from the data in a more indirect way, which could make it faster without, sacrificing accuracy.
So, like, it's learning from its mistakes more quickly
Yeah.
without needing to be constantly told what those mistakes are.
You got it. And what's really exciting is that increased efficiency. It opens up even more possibilities for how we use RLHF. Another thing that I think is really cool, it's the potential for offline RL.
Offline RL. Okay, haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
What's the big deal with offline RL?
Right now, a lot of these systems, they learn in an online setting, so they need that constant feedback loop to get better. Offline RL, though, that would let the AI learn from, huge, massive data sets of past interactions, even without a human directly giving feedback.
So it's like giving the AI this crash course in human conversation by letting it analyze millions of conversations all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Offline RL could be huge when it comes to scaling up RLHF, making it even more powerful. It could also mean that we could train AI on more diverse, more nuanced data sets, which could help with some of those bias concerns we talked about earlier.
This is all really incredible, but where does it all lead? Like, what's the big picture here? I mean, this is clearly a big deal, but what does it actually look like in action?
It's like we're on the verge of this whole new world, right? But it's easy to get lost in all the jargon, the reward models and algorithms. So what does this actually look like when we put it into practice?
Exactly, yeah. Like, what's the real world impact?
Well, one area where RLHF is already making a big difference is in text summarization. Imagine being able to take like a super long research paper or a news article, feed it to an AI, and boom, you get this perfect little summary. All the key points, nice and concise.
Okay, that would be a game changer. No more spending hours trying to make sense of all that dense information. What else? What else can we do with this?
Another really cool application is in creating better dialogue agents. We see how engaging ChatGPT can be, right?
Oh, yeah.
But with RLHF, we could build AI systems that are even better at following along in a conversation, responding in a natural way, and even adapting to how different people talk.
So we're talking about AI that can actually make you feel heard, actually understood. That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And think about it. This could change everything.
Yeah.
Customer service chatbots that can handle your complicated questions, virtual assistants that can predict what you need before you even ask. It's pretty amazing.
It really is mind-blowing when you stop and think about the possibilities. But as with any really powerful technology, there's a responsibility that comes with it, right?
100%. We've talked about the bias that can creep into these systems, and that's something we always have to be watching out for. As we build more sophisticated AI, we have to make sure it reflects the kind of world we actually want to live in. A world that's fair, inclusive, a world that benefits everyone.
It's bigger than just building cool tech. It's about building tech that really aligns with our values.
I love that. And that means we need to keep talking to each other. AI researchers, ethicists, policymakers, even the public. We have to work together to make sure these technologies are developed ethically, responsibly, with a focus on what's good for humanity.
It's a journey we're all on together, and it's full of exciting discoveries, tough conversations, and it's really just getting started. So, to everyone listening, as you see AI becoming more and more part of your life, remember that human element, that RLHF that's shaping it. Keep asking questions, stay curious, because who knows, maybe you'll be the one to make that next big AI breakthrough.
I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me neither. And on that note, that's a wrap on this deep dive into RLHF. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.